Amen.
Okay, so time. Good morning. Yeah, good morning to you all. You dear, you are here always here. You welcome home. Okay. Yes. You welcome to the central region of Ghana, Asen Manso Slave Market, and the ancestral river park. My name is Kofi Aminu. I am Kofi because I'm a male born on Friday, and in Ghana, Fridays are always the best. Yes. And I'm going to be and I'm going to be and I'm going to be your side guide. Okay. But before we start with the tour, in here we only have one celebrity, and that celebrity is our ancestors. So we're going to observe a minute of silence for all our brothers and sisters who lost their lives during the trade, on the Middle Passage, through segregation, through discrimination, through police brutality, and through other forces that was not meant for them. And after which I would say, may their souls rest in perfect peace. And all of us are going to respond by saying, Ashe. Ashe basically means, may it come to pass. So please can we all observe a minute of silence. May the souls of our ancestors rest in perfect peace. Ashe. You know my name to be Kofi. I am a student of research. I've been into this field for the past 10 years. Mostly, you don't like asking me questions because you believe that whatever it is that I've given out, I've been able to give all that you want to know. And it has also made my research background very poor because the answers that you give and the questions that I ask always provides me some research topic. Because with our history, we need to do more about it. So today, I would be the one to ask you the questions. And you are going to answer all my questions. Because none of my questions are rhetorical. And I guess you're all ready for my first question. I want you to answer it based on how you feel. Not about me. It's about yourself. When you read in history that your own brothers and sisters were among those group of people that sold you into slavery, how did that make you feel?
Betrayed.
Betrayed?
Pissed off.
This, I love that word. The way you even made your mouth. Pissed off. I love it.
Angry.
Okay?
You know, I just want revenge sometimes.
Yes, yes. You see, with all this adjective that you have given, right? I am always, always, always at your side. Because you cannot, I don't want you to be too melanated. Let's get over there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I am always, always at your side. Okay? Because you cannot tell me you love me and you are so ready to let me go. Whilst we were growing up, our parents taught us to love. They taught us to love everyone, irrespective of where those people were coming from. So my question is, where did we go wrong? Is it because of greed or some selfish interest among some group of people? Now this topic has become a very sensitive topic. You want to know why I sold you, but I'm also not ready to speak about it. But I'm the same person that keeps telling you to come to me because we want same people. How can that happen? It cannot. Because physically we are together. But spiritually, we are millions miles apart. That is why I, Kofi, I have taken upon myself to talk about the topic and the missing link. Most of the things that we know today, it is not our story. There are people's story about us. It's a story. So sometimes I want to get closer to you to call you my sister. But I'm scared of how you're going to respond to me. Sometimes you also want to see me as a brother. But that history is making you not to even believe me. And we are always walking around in circles. Most of my brothers from the diaspora always believe that the continental Africans never felt any pain because they let their own people and gave up on their own people. So I was reading a book, and this research told me something very important. The research stated that the pains felt by our forebears could still be felt in us. So I was like, so if that pain is in us, for me coming from the continent of Africa, where did I find that pain? So I started searching for where my pain is. Because with your pain, you always tell me you were taken away and you were mistreated. So that is where you find your pain. But for me, where do I find my pain? So I started searching to get where I found my pain. That makes you and I the same people. So while I was finding out, I glanced through a book entitled The Transatlantic Slave Trade, Landmark Legacies and Expectations by Professor J.E. Akwanda. Now, this professor made a very interesting revelation about the trade. The professor stated that 1% of the indigenous Africans supported the trade. 1%. And 99% of us were against the trade. Today, the 99% of us are being blamed for the pains that was caused by the 1%. But to understand my pain better and your journey, I'm going to present you with two scenarios. I know it's going to be very difficult for you to choose, but because of me, Kofi, your brother, just choose one and tell me why you go for it. So, I came to you, sweetheart, as your brother. You see, when mom and dad gave birth to me, they had a terrible accident. So they left me once I was very young, and you were also very young, but just older than me. You decided that you would never let me go. You're going to support me, everything for me to get to the top. So you were like my backbone. You were my pillar I relied on. So it was so difficult from the start, but you did everything for me. I was able to go to the university with the pains and struggle from you. I graduated from the university and I had to stay in the house for 2 years without a job. Sometimes when I look at my sister, I feel so pain because I'm feeling like a liability on my sister. But she always keeps telling me, Kofi, don't think like that. I am your support. I am always for you. At the right time, you're going to get the best of jobs. So one day I went out to have my own quiet time and I met my friend. Then my friend told me, Kofi, hey, what are you doing? I said, nothing. He said, oh, I am an event promoter. I organize events and I know you are so good with the microphone. So I wanted you to be my MC in all my events that I organize. But I just have a contract with me. Kofi, are you ready to sign a contract? So I was like, yes, why not? I was so excited. So when you gave me the contract to look at it, one thing that I noticed is that my first cash out could even buy me a Ferrari. So which means right there I was rich. I was so excited to append my signature. But something keeps telling me, no, you can't take the decision by yourself. You have to see the one that supported your pillar. So you have to see your sister. So your sister together with you would share this job. So my brother gave me the document. And I came home so proud. I knocked and said, sis, there is a good news. I gave you the contract. And while sis read the contract, I was like, oh, Kofi, we made it. We are so you were so proud of me. But when you read beneath it, you realize that no, there's something missing. The places that this event could be organized could not order well for me. I could go in there to die or come alive. But you don't want your son, your brother to die. You don't want the money at that instant. You want the safety of me. So he said, Kofi, you know I love you so much. I know this is your dream, but these conditions in the contract is not making me to feel good. I prefer to have you than letting you go. So this contract, I will not let you out. Sign it. I was so disappointed. But I came back again because I know she loves me. So when I knew you loved me, I started pushing that thing. I said, no, sister, do it for me. And you were like, as a mother, I have to do it for you. Kofi, just go and do your own thing. So we amended our signature for my first event. So on that day, I said, sis, I'm going. And he said, good luck. So I went to that event. And you and I was just doing something to put on the television. And when you put on the television, your brother was making magic. Everybody was loving your brother. Everyone was talking about your brother. You were so proud. You were waiting for me to come home to cook me my best of meal. So a few hours, you had a knock on the door. Kofi had a special way of knocking. So immediately you knew that knock, you knew Kofi was home. You were so proud to welcome your brother. So while you opened the gate to welcome Kofi, to your surprise, someone presented to you the dead body of him. That your brother who you just saw a few hours on the television is dead. And this is the body. What you were thinking of has happened. This is the dead body. The second scenario, all things being equal, I, Kofi, went to that same birthday party to do my same MC program. But this time, I never came back and you never saw me again. These two, to choose one. Which one would you go for? And why?
Wow. Wow. How can a choice be made?
Like, let me
I'm gonna turn this
think
off
about
right now. I gotta think about this one.
The first one, you have closure.
Yeah,
The
that's what I
second
was
one,
thinking.
the
There's
net is
don't.
open,
Yeah.
not knowing. Which one would you go for?
But there's still a possibility that you're alive.
That is there is.
It's just a
and there
possibility,
can
but
also
you may
be
never know.
You
Yes.
may never, or you may find one.
Or also maybe you never find out again.
I may go for the first
The
one.
closure.
Yeah, because love was exchanged at that last moment. It doesn't matter that I was right. I don't, that's not the point. The point is you were happy. I was
You
proud.
did what you love to do.
Exactly, and it was his time.
Sweetheart,
I would rather the second scenario.
the hope.
Yep.
Okay. Because you believe you might see him or her someday. Right?
Yep.
And what of you? What of you? I don't know.
Very difficult.
Okay, so let me just make it so I'll also have my say on this. I look at my family, right? And I always go for closure.
Yeah, it closes very
Because
important.
I cannot stay one day
Without
not
knowing.
knowing where my
Knowing.
son is.
Without knowing.
The prolonged aches and pains would even cripple me.
It's your
I'll be waking up every morning, even if I had a knock on my door. I'll be thinking, is he coming home?
My
Right.
life would never be right. It would
It will never. That pain of not seeing and knowing. I don't even want to imagine. I am going to even die out of it. I can't imagine that. But when I have the closure, I know where I kept the body. It is the body that is gone, but the spirit remains. So I could always go to the grave of my son and say, hey son, your mother is here. I'm here to even offer you a flower. At least I have that closure. Many of our brothers and sisters from the diaspora, many go for closure because of the prolonged aches and pains.
Yes.
So if we go for closure because of the aches and pains, my question to you today is, have you thought of the 99% continental Africans who have their brothers and sisters in you stolen and taken away from us? Nobody brought to us your dead bodies for us to have closure. No. We have been through this pain for over 400 years now without a closure. But my question to you today is, how do we get our closure? The only time we could get our closure is a day today for you to have made it home. So you're coming here, you are giving closure to millions of your forebears who never thought they would have seen you once again on the land. You're coming here, you are giving closure to the land that bleeded and cried for your return. And today, you are here to give closure to myself, my sister, and my brother. So you're coming here, it's a spiritual journey. You never planned to be here, no. It has already been planned for you to be here. That is why I always keep telling you, the best way to connect to what it is in store for you is to unlearn first before you learn. But when you come thinking you have learned, you learn nothing. Before the coming of the Europeans, Africans were having this slavery institution that was ongoing. I have stopped talking about this because historians and academics have already concluded that it was the indentured servitude. We have rights, we have privileges, and nobody owns us. Nobody owns our family, and nobody owns our children. It is for a short time I work, I pay my debt, I come back to my freedom. Now, this system of slavery in Africa was different from the chattel slavery that was imposed on us. Someone asked me how different that was. I said, hey, just read the law of slavery in Carolina in 1616. When you read that law, you understand the damage that was caused. The law basically stated that all free men would have absolute rights over their enslaved persons. And they could do whatsoever they wish to do to you, and no one could question them. So in that enactment, you don't exist as human. You were just like a commodity. The difference between your sunglass and an enslaved person is that the enslaved person has a soul. But the same way you could easily get annoyed and break your sunglass was how the spirits of enslaved persons were broken in that enactment. It happened in Charleston when a slave merchant called Newcomb raped this little girl called Cecilia. Cecilia was so tired of all these rape abuses. One day, she took a dagger and she stabbed this man to death. She was taken to court, and you know what the court said? She was a slave, and everything that the master did to her, the masters have the right to do so. So this lady was sentenced in prison, life in prison, and was killed. This system was what was introduced on us. And that system in Carolina has already been introduced to us here in Ghana in 1471. That is when the first European arrived. They were the Portuguese, and they were led by Prince Henry the Navigator. Now, when the Portuguese landed on the coast of West Africa, Ghana, and Africa, do you know the first name they gave you? The first name they gave us was the children from the sun. Why would they name us children from the sun? Because they saw how the sun smiles on our skin, and they couldn't contain the power and the strength from the sun. Looking at us from afar, they saw our communal way we work, the unity in us, they saw it. So they wanted to get into us and know what makes you and what makes you. But the question is, how can I get to your space if you don't give me the chance to enter? They capitalize on our greatest asset. And you know what that is? Hospitality. For us Africans, we don't have gates. People just enter in us and come out of us because we are trained to love. And that spirit in us brought our downfall. So when we allow them and they became part of us, imagine you taking the devil to a dinner. You should know what would happen, either to destroy or to kill. So they became part of us. But they were clever. They never killed. They started learning before they killed. So in medical sciences, when they came in, they saw how our traditional healers could just take 2 herbs, boil them, and heal thousands of people. They saw it. They saw how our farmers was using the best of practices to get the best of yields. They saw it. They saw how we built. They saw the strength of our youth. They saw our weakness. They also saw our strength. We were not perfect. No, we were not perfect. But I could assure you, we were excellent. When they saw all this about us, there was a missing link, so they didn't know what to do, not until 1492, when supposedly the New World was discovered. Men and women were needed to develop that new world. But if I take you from your land to another land, tomorrow history will judge me. So if I don't want history to judge me, then I have to start rewriting history. So what they did to us is they took slavery into the church so that religion could justify it. And a Portuguese priest, in the person of Bartolomeo de las Casas, proposed that we should be bought in order to develop the new world. So that when you talk about it today, religion will prove to you that it is good to own a slave, so that they could justify the stances and the mistakes and the cruelty that they put on us. Now, during the discourse of the slave trade also, slave market also played an important role because the market was where the two devils meet, the buyers and the sellers. According to one historian in the person of Professor Akosua Adumapebi, in a book entitled The History of the Indigenous Slavery in Ghana, from the 15th century to the 19th century, documented that Ghana had 63 slave markets. 57 of them was managed by the Caucasians. But out of the 63 slave markets, she made mention of two markets that played the most important role. And these two markets, we have the largest market at the northern part of the country. And the name for this market is the Salaga slave market. The second largest market is where we find ourselves now, Assin Manso. But Assin Manso, it became the busiest of the slave markets that existed in Ghana. Why the busiest? Because it was closer to the three dungeons, Fort Amsterdam, Cape Coast, and Elmina. So captives, mostly prisoners of war that were captured from the upper borders of the country, some part of Burkina Faso, Mali, Ivory Coast, everywhere you were captured, in chains and in shackles, barefooted and half naked, you were being made to walk all the way to the Salaga slave market. With the Salaga market, they were walking through the savannah belt. So the trees were not that bushy, it wasn't that longer. So they endured pain, but at least they saw what is ahead of them until they got to Salaga. When they got to Salaga, they were given something to eat. Our ancestors never even wanted to eat, but they were forced to feed. They fed them because they knew that now is the journey about to start. Because from the Salaga market to Assin Manso is going to be the toughest. After the food in chains and shackles, barefooted and half naked, it is 600 miles that our forebears were made to walk in order to get to this land, which is almost 5 to 6 months of a journey. So if you are a female and you are part of this caravan, if all things being equal, you have to go through 6 menstrual cycles. That is out of the journey. They were marching through the forest belt of the country in chains and shackles. In 2004, there was a research called the Slave Route Project, identifying the path took by our forebears. And one of the places that was identified is today our nature reserve. And the name for the place is the Mole National Park. So imagine if our ancestors have to walk through that forest in chains and shackles. When an animal attacks you, you cannot fight because you are in chains and shackles. And many of these animals fed on our people, and they just killed our people. It got to a point, according to an history that was shared to me by my granny, he said when they were coming, the women were basically leading. They were trying to force their way out to let people come and support. So they were always on top of their voices shouting for people to come and support. But people came to support them, but later those people ended up being part of them. So because they were seen as a threat, for the women, a stone is put into their mouth and a rope is tied around it so that they couldn't even open their mouth and speak. Some were also put through the metallic mask concept, where they put a metal on your head. It's like a tiny object, it is placed in your mouth and it's screwed together. So when you try to open your mouth, that sharp object could cut your tongue. So because you don't want it to cut your tongue, you just have to keep mute and make the journey. When they were coming, the ladies that were having their menstrual flow, they were so tired because having your menstrual flow and going through this, and the blood was oozing everywhere. So they were promised freedom. They were said, no, we can't let you go, we just have to leave you. And those that have been beaten so mercilessly, they were also promised of freedom. So for your freedom, what they did to you is that they chain you around the big trees they find in the forest, and they tell you someone will come for you. But that was not the plan. The plan was they were using you as bait to negotiate their way through the forest. Because of the blood that is coming through you, it easily attracts wild animals to your end. So all those wild animals that were attacking them would rather go to those that have been chained, so that the other ones will have the journey to pass behind them and get over here. So walking for 580 miles, they got to a river. The river is just 20 miles from here. And the name for this river is the Pra River. So having taken 580 miles journey, and you have seen a river, what will come to your mind? I am sure to drink. But look, our ancestors never drank from that river. Those that drank in the river were those that drowned in the river. It was where our first sorting out took place. When we got to the river, those that were seen not marketable. A cannonball as big as size of a football is connected to our shackles and were thrown in the river to drown and die. Many of them were coming from the interior. They never know how to swim because swimming wasn't part of their occupation, and the majority died in the river. The few ones have to continue the journey, and they landed. You could join us. The few ones have to continue the journey, and the journey they landed here at Asen Manso. They landed here very devastated. They were so broke. Some were even going crazy because of the psychological pain that they have suffered. So in here was where they decided to sort us out in terms of age and gender. But when they asked us of our ages, we were not ready to tell them our ages because you're not my friend. So how do I tell you my age? So they derived a technique of using the speculum oris. This device is placed into your mouth. Open your mouth. Count your teeth to forecast your ages. Broken bottles was what was used to shave us just for us to look attractive. After which, we were made to walk all the way to the river in order to take our last bath. We went through our first auction in Brandon, but those that could not continue the journey are those that remained on this land. They were killed and buried from the edge of the grass all the way to the river. So everywhere here served as a graveyard of our forebears. That is why when you are coming through the main gate, the gate looked very short. So many of you came through like this. Yes, unconsciously, you already paid your respect to the land. We are not here to preach religion, no, but you have to respect us. And I'm not here to tell you to do it, but you've already done that because this land belongs to our forebears. The few ones that were able to continue the journey from here are those that landed at the 3 dungeons: Fort Amsterdam, Cape Coast, and Elmina. Now note, no siblings ever share the same dungeons. It's never happened because they were scared that when families come together, they could easily plan. That is why you can even go to the States, you could go to other places, and you see people in Africa that looks like you. Yes, they are directly connected to you because in that trade, the only thing they wanted to achieve was separation. Now, when they got to the dungeons, they stayed in the dungeons for 3 months, awaiting the slave ship to arrive. Yes, the slave ship did. And before our ancestors could be taken onto the slave ship, they were made to go through a particular door. And do you know the name on this door? The door of no return. Have you ever asked yourself in your quiet time, why the door of no return? Because simply the door of no return is just to tell you that no matter what you do, you're never going to make it home. And that door has been on us for over 400 years now. And sometimes we think we are back home, but we are not. Because that door has so much importance of you coming back home and not coming back home. So with the door of no return, when Marcus Garvey was telling us that people without the knowledge of your culture, origin, race, or tribe, you are just like a tree without a root. The root that Marcus Garvey was referring to was denied us at the door of no return. And somebody asked me, what is that root? Do you want to know that root? And that root is our names. With African naming system, you don't have a choice. You are given life assignment. Your name should correspond to your community, your family, and your destiny. So even if I don't know this group of mine, I don't even know them. Even if I don't know them, and they mention their name to me now, I should be able to tell you where each of them are coming from. So if those names has been denied you, where do you start? I am sure you've watched this movie, The Root. This man was beaten to the point of death, but he was holding on to the most dearest thing in his heart, his name. You can do everything to me, I will never drop my name. Because he knows that immediately he drops that name, that is the end of him. But for how long can our ancestors take on these physical abuses? For how long? It got to a point they were so stuck, they were so tired. So they have to let go and acquire the slave names. But after letting it go, they believe that no, we can also take our people away. We should have a way of connecting you and me. So they rely on spirituality to connect us. So that when you come over here and see me praying, I have a bottle of ram. I pour it on the ground. I call it the point of libation. You do same to my omi. You pour it on the ground. That is how genetically coded we are. We are the only group that does this. We are the only group that does. Nobody does. So when you see these little traces for where you are coming from, and I'm also doing it, it is basically telling you that you belong to the same group of people. But the devils will not sleep because they have to destroy. So when they saw all this, they knew they couldn't come to us. They started targeting our children. And they took our children through a journey of epigenetics. A journey for us to think of ourselves who we are not. Today when you go to the States, you see people like you and me preferred to be called Black American, but not African American. That is why Peter Tosh, a musician, said it so well. He said, hey, don't matter the nationality. As long as you are a black person, you are an African. Today, aren't we tired to continue sitting for our oppressors and enslavers to continue writing our story? The time has come for us to change the narrative and tell our own story. If they can write, we can write better. And if they can lie, we can lie better. So that name, we have to come back in order to write our story. But before we can write our story, words are very powerful. And that words of distraction they put on us at that door of no return, we have to change it and make it a door of return in order for us to come back home safely. But the question is, how do we do that? That is why, as you can see in the graveyard, we have the mortal remains of our two great ancestors. Krista, you are here?
Yes.
Yes, we have Madam Krista from Kingston, Jamaica. And in the middle, we have Samuel Carson from New York, US of A. So Madam Krista was a young, beautiful lady. So I've never seen Krista, but when I saw Krista in her, I knew, yes, she was a very beautiful lady. She was basically taken from Abanze Comantin and she landed in Jamaica as a enslaved African. But this lady, according to history, never ever saw herself as a